Hello there, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this webinar. I'm very happy to be able to present our great friend and colleague, Cindy Engel, for this webinar, because finally it's happened. At last, the book I've been waiting for, Cindy. I can't believe it's really true. It's really happened. Here it is. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's only been 4 years in the making.
4 years. Yeah, and some of you probably have been on some of the webinars that we've had with Cindy in the past, so you'll be familiar maybe with some of the ideas. Loads of people saying hi on the chat. People are tuning in. We've got a really interesting program for you, and here are the slides. Okay.
Sure. So the topic really started when it's all about my experience with you guys at the Shiatsu College in Norwich. When I started training, I very quickly discovered that I felt funny when I was working on people. Mm-hmm. And ever since then, I mean, that's 24 years ago now, I think. 2020 we were there. I've been exploring experientially and via research, literature research, as to what on earth is going on, and it's taken a very long time to put it all together. Wow. And get it into a cohesive form, and hopefully I've managed it, but we'll see.
Well, I think you have. I love this book, as you can see by the reviews. It's just so great.
Thank you. So it started off as an exploration of what's going on when you work on people in Shiatsu, and you feel their emotions, or you feel their pains, or sometimes you get really clear images of their thought processes, and when you check with them, it's all validated. And as a biologist and scientist, I was thinking, well, I've never heard of this. Why haven't I been told about this? What is this? And I know that we all have our conceptual models in the Shiatsu world, but I wanted to know, well, why aren't scientists into this? And it's the reason it took so long to get it together is that actually there wasn't the technology and there wasn't the computational power to analyze the systems of two brains interacting and all that. So it is literally only just possible recently for scientists to say anything sensible.
I was going to ask you that, Cindy. It must have changed a lot over those years, over the last few decades.
Definitely. And I mean, the massive shift is the awareness that mind and body are not separate now. I mean, that was really ingrained heavily in science. Like you have biology, which studies the body, and psychology that studies the mind, and they don't really talk to each other. But it's become, because of systems science and an AI, basically. We have got to thank AI for sorting this all out.
Yes.
Because of the sheer computational power, they can now analyze really complex systems like human beings.
All right.
Only a tiny little bit, teeny tiny little bit, because we're our brain is the most complex thing in the universe. So there's no way they're going to understand it all, but just getting a glimpse of what's going on. Anyway, so that's the origin of the book.
Yeah.
And we're starting with a poll. Okay.
Yeah. So how much do you already know about somatic empathy, just to give us an idea of they're very modest, you see. No one said expert. Probably because they know the subject is so complex that no one can be an expert.
No, I don't think anyone's an expert. No.
Okay, so look, you've got some knowledge, and you've only got like 22% saying they've got a good knowledge. There we are, Cindy. So
yep,
that's your audience.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. So the way what I found quite quickly was that what we're talking about is a process of how we understand each other. And so it's not that we're picking up emotions and thoughts and physical aches and pains because of some kind of accidental merging or some kind of malintent from somebody. It's literally this biological, this adaptive need to understand each other. And before language, this is how we all understood each other.
Right, wow.
We felt how each other felt. And this is how animals understand each other. All birds and mammals have somatic empathy going on. They have simulations going on. So they feel how others feel. They don't need a complex theory of mind. They don't need complex cognitive skills to work out what everyone else is doing. You know, your dog knows you're anxious because he feels your anxiety, shares your anxiety, knows you're in pain, shares your pain. And this is going on for us, but it's been kind of subsumed. I don't even know if that's a word, is it?
Yeah.
It's been squished down by the dominance of rational analytical thinking, you know, the superiority of reading and writing and language in our culture. Whereas, you know, experiential, intuitive, knowing how someone is by feeling with them has been pushed aside, but it's still there. And you know, people are beginning to turn around and have a look at it. And you've all heard of Stephen Porges. Is it Porges?
Yes.
I don't know how to pronounce it. He calls this instantaneous assessment of other people neuroception. And when he says instantaneous, it is really instantaneous. You know, you can't measure how, you know, in milliseconds, less than a millisecond of an immediate awareness of intention and safety.
Right.
And how that works is all, you know, still in the bag, as it were. But it exists, and you know, all the scientists know that there is this instantaneous assessment, and it's to do with whether there's an advantage to you or a disadvantage. So death and sex, basically. Are you going to be killed, or are you getting an opportunity? And that's sort of a really primal instinct, and it's very, very quick. Now, because we want to understand our clients, and because this is still intact in our unconscious repertoire, this is going on when we're interacting with our clients. So we get to the word empathy because empathy, I know it's got a variety of definitions, but if you take the common denominator of all these different definitions, what you get down to these two factors of it's an ability to understand someone and share their feelings. Yeah. So it's got two components. It's got this somatic component, which is the sharing bit. So you are embodying their experience, you're sharing their experience. And you've got the conscious comprehension bit, the understanding bit. But that conscious cognitive bit is dependent on, it's founded on the somatic bit. Right. So if you don't have very good, if you don't have very strong somatic empathy, if your body doesn't respond very well to other people, you can work out how they feel using your mental processing, but it isn't as good, it isn't as nuanced as thoughts that are based on feelings. Right. And this is all quite new to cognitive scientists, but it is now accepted by most neuroscientists and most cognitive scientists that consciousness is based on the felt sense. That felt sense is the primary form of consciousness that evolved. The first thing that evolved on the planet in terms of intelligence was feeling something. Wow.
It kind of upends the whole kind of way that we're taught that the mind is the superior thing, and somehow intuitive feelings are something sort of, you know,
totally
inferior.
Totally. It's precisely the other way around. All the clever thinking is based on the really primal feeling and intuitive stuff that's going on. Wow. And that if that's what you're working with a really massive and ancient intelligence that is, you know, we can't get into whether it's superior or inferior, but it's different. It has a completely different neurological pathway.
Right.
And that pathway is really old.
Right.
And the cognitive pathway, the thinking about how people are, is really new. That's all in the cerebral cortex, you know, that.
Yes.
And but even that's not unique to humans. You know, quite a lot of the mammals have got an ability to work out theory of mind about each other. So there are very few things that are unique to humans anymore.
Really?
Maybe wars. Yeah. So so what interests me here is that if you look at groups of children who have got a diagnosis of having psychopathic traits, they can't feel what other people are feeling, but they can work it out. So they've got cognitive empathy, so they know that, you know, if they hit the boy next to them, that boy is not going to like it.
Right.
But they don't share the pain.
Right.
And because they don't share the pain, their cognitive empathy is impaired. Right. So this is where all the research has come, that actually you need to feel in order to think.
Right. Yes.
And those people that can't feel very much are not very good at thinking. You know, it kind of carries over. So it's very interesting. And, you know, watch this space really, because the whole of consciousness studies is kind of turning on its head. Yeah. Okay. Where are we? Next one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've just separated out somatic empathy from cognitive empathy, but I do have to mention sympathy, because quite often sympathy is given as part of a definition of empathy, and in fact it's quite a different thing. So with sympathy there's a separation. You feel sorry for someone else, but with empathy you're feeling with them. There's no separation, and that's quite an important distinction. Because if what happens in our life experience when we feel empathy is that everything cascades really quickly together. So we're talking milliseconds between feeling how someone is, working out how they are, and feeling sympathy. There's literally, you know, a few hundred milliseconds. So to us, it all feels like the same thing. Right. You know, so you feel, oh yes, empathy means I feel sympathy for them and everything. But neuroscientists can break it down and find, oh no, there's the somatic bit, there's the cognitive bit, and there's the result, there's the sympathy. Yeah. Anyway, it's interesting to us because people of different, you know, we're all neurodiverse, as in there's all variation between us, and different people have different strengths of each of those components. Right. Yeah. So then we get down to some language. I'm just going to look in the chat to see if there's anything. Yeah. Yes, it's been trained out of us, the intellectual emphasis. Indeed. Yeah. And this obsession with reading and writing, and it's like, and, you know, assuming that people who aren't very good at that, dyslexics, that assuming that that's, you know, a kind of problem, whereas in fact they can have all sorts of other bonuses to that, to working intuitively or experientially. Anyway, I just want to get a bit of terminology in here, because if you're interested in this stuff and you read up about it, you might find scientists calling it affective empathy, and it's just a slight modification, as in affective empathy is empathy based, is a sharing of emotion basically, and they find it throughout the animal kingdom, and so they assume it's all unconscious. Now when we get to humans, we can ask people how they feel, and lots of people describe being aware of sharing feelings with others. And so I'm trying to distinguish between these two things, where, you know, you automatically share what's going on with someone else, but you're not aware. And what happens to a lot of us Shiatsu practitioners is that you're working on someone and you're aware that you're sharing what's going on for them. And so this is why I've sort of emphasized this term somatic empathy, just to differentiate it from effective empathy.
Okay.
But having said that, because the threshold of awareness moves around, it's almost a useless distinction. So I've kind of talked myself out of that. But my point is that even if we are completely unaware of sharing other people's emotions or physiological state or pain, and most of it is unconscious, and even if we're unaware of that, it still informs our thinking. It's still the foundation of all our thinking and all our decisions.
Right. Okay. Even though we might not consciously be aware of it.
Totally. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So you don't know why you want to press this point or do that, but it's, there is reasoning in there that's all been bubbling away and coming up.
Yeah.
And it's quite an important realization, because I realized that I have trained myself to trust that process quite a lot.
Yeah.
Like really, notice the tiniest little yearning to do something.
Yes.
When I'm working on someone, it's really, really subtle.
Yeah.
But I trust that that's come from my somatic empathy that I'm not aware of.
Yeah, that's so interesting, isn't it? It really kind of reflects on the teaching process as well, because I find a lot of the teaching of techniques like that, awareness and techniques, is based on getting the person to be comfortable and relaxed enough to be able to flow with that, you know what I mean, and not question it. And
totally, yeah,
that can be one of the main things.
Yeah. It is a question that is always turning up. Is like, how do I know that it's somatic empathy and not me, and trusting those little intuitions and little urges. And it is literally about, it sounds bad, but it's about caring less about the outcome. Because if you say, well, I'm going to go with that little feeling, even though I've been taught that I ought to press this and do that, I'm going to go with this little feeling. So it's about, for me, it feels like I'm not fretting about the outcome. I'm trusting the process.
Yeah, that's a very good way.
Make any sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah.
Because often in the beginning, I used to feel that I wasn't giving people value for money if I just stayed still for what seemed like ages. But actually, that was what I needed to do.
Yeah.
And so, not worrying about what they're thinking about.
No.
Yeah. Good.
Great.
So the question comes, why should we bother to understand how somatic empathy works and apply it in Shiatsu? And for me, I always use the word information rather than energy. It's just, it fits with, it means I can broaden out my research language to include consciousness research and AI research and so on. I can take it outside of bodywork.
Yes.
Because we're all talking about the same thing, but they use the word information.
Yes.
So, yeah. And somatic empathy is information. It's information in your body. And we all want information about our clients because that's how we help them. That's how we make changes for them, help changes for them. And I put these words subconscious, unconscious, and conscious, which again are not very clearly defined.
No.
We're in a bit of a mess in the West, in that we have a really overly simplified language to talk about consciousness and awareness, compared to, say, traditional contemplative traditions, Taoism and Buddhism and so on, they have a plethora of words which all have these really precise meanings and, you know, aspects of mind and aspects of intention and aspects of attention. You know, in Qigong, we're teaching different qualities of attention, and they got different names, you know. And in Western consciousness scientists, they're still arguing about the word conscious and consciousness. Anyway. Oh dear. So really, it's about how much you can move that threshold of your personal awareness, and being aware that, I mean, I love that quote by David Chalmers, the cognitive scientist, who says the bit of your mind that you're aware of is the size of a broom cupboard in a mansion. The mansion is your mind.
Yeah.
And you live in the broom cupboard. And it's like, okay, so trusting that the mansion is processing all this information.
Yeah.
And you don't need to know it all. Because what will happen when you have an intention, so an intention like, you know, what's the best thing I can do for this person's shoulder? All this subconscious, unconscious information processing will bloop, a little blip of an idea, a little subtle urge to do something, or a little blip of information will come through, or not, but it probably will, and it's whether you notice it or not.
Right. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Anyway, this next one is to provide your client with a sense of being heard. I think it's amazingly profound to actually share someone's experience.
Absolutely.
Far more than, you know, understanding cognitively. You know, you can tell, you know, we all know this, you know, you're telling someone a terrible story about your life and they go, oh dear, how sad. Or they actually start crying, you know, actually share your suffering, you know, and it's profoundly different, isn't it?
And it's interesting, they don't have to say anything.
No.
They have to, in fact, sometimes it's more powerful if they don't say anything.
Yeah.
I've noticed that with following Nick Pohl's work with clean language. I've been absolutely amazed at the power of just sitting there and just letting the client work through the stuff and just witnessing them and being there. Unbelievable.
Yeah, especially if they can feel you are sharing the experience with them.
Exactly, that's it, isn't it?
The words are just really annoying and get in the way, you know.
Yeah, I think they do sometimes. Yeah.
Yes, and it's this. I find that it's almost a unique experience for a lot of people. They are never heard in this way.
Right.
You know, so you have clients describe it as surprisingly intimate, and it's like, that's not a word I would use, but I know what they mean. They mean that there's been a connection that they weren't expecting.
Yeah.
You know, and that, or you don't get in a normal, you know, you don't get when you go to the hairdressers.
No.
Yeah. So I think somatic empathy is quite profound, because the person, you both feel it without necessarily knowing what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, when you feel you've got a connection with someone or you don't. Because it works negatively as well. You know, you just think, oh, I don't want to be near that person.
No.
Okay, the potential for modeling. So we all know that you can model desirable conditions, and the most common one, I guess, is that you adapt your breathing and slow your heart rate. If you want to calm someone down, you slow your own breathing. If you want to get them to relax, you drop your own shoulders, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But and we now understand why that works, is because unconsciously they are your client is the receiver and you are the giver, and that relationship sets up the direction of physiological synchrony.
Yeah.
So you're like the dominant animal and they're like the subordinate animal. I hate, I'm an animal behaviorist, so I'm always going back to animal examples.
Yeah.
That there's a direction then that they will be copying you automatically, unconsciously. And And I notice it when they don't. I really notice when a client is not somatically responsive to my modeling.
Yes.
I have to try something else.
Yes.
It's quite interesting. But anyway.
I just want to credit Pauline Sasaki with that actual term in Shiatsu, because she actually developed that way back in the 90s, actually, the whole idea of modeling before, a lot of this was understood. And that was a major part of the technique.
I'm not claiming to have invented any of these things. I'm literally just putting the dots on and crossing the T's and bringing the scientific explanation in to something.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I meant it just as it was just so interesting to think that she was doing that, even before the mechanisms were understood. It was an intuitive thing. It was an intuitive thing.
It was an intuitive, experiential thing. But also, what was I going to say? Mothers automatically, apparently, know this, going back to, as far as we can go back, is that if your baby is crying, the best thing to do is calm yourself.
Yeah.
And the baby will calm down. And now there's been loads of research on how the hearts synchronize, and as the mother slows her heart rate, the baby's heart rate slows down, and that babies with very stressed mothers don't learn to self-regulate because they're not co-regulating with the mother and all that.
Right. Yeah.
So there's been a lot on this issue of they're calling it co-regulation rather than modeling, but we can use our own words. But what fascinates me is brain coupling research, where, again, mother and child hooked up to machines, showing that their brains are working in as one mega brain.
Wow. Yeah.
And only when one wants to understand the other. You can't make someone's brain hook up with yours. They have to be interested in you or have to have some curiosity about you.
Yeah.
Anyway, but once you have brains coupled, the dominant brain, the leader, can gently pull the other brain to work in a certain way. And mothers sometimes instinctively do this when they're training their children to pay attention to things. So they do attention training. It's kind of an automatic thing.
Yeah.
And again, mothers that don't do this, their kids don't have such good attention spans and things. So very interesting. Just the beginning of this research. It's going to be, the next 10 years, there's going to be loads more coming out because the AI industry are interested in how to manipulate human brains. So they're very interested in brain coupling.
I can imagine, if they could brain couple with everyone and get them to buy a certain product, it would be an amazingly successful advertising campaign.
Yes, and I would think that's probably already happening.
Yeah.
Because this is the other reason that I wanted to write all this down in a book, is that people who are in positions of power know this stuff and we don't.
Right.
It makes us quite vulnerable to being guided, shall we say, one way or another.
Yes.
We're very, we like to think that we're independent and autonomous, but biologically speaking, we're very prone to group mind, and we're very prone to, slotting into how everyone else is functioning.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And this, why should we apply somatic empathy? To get that non-verbal reciprocity, that non-verbal dialogue going, unconscious minded body to unconscious minded body.
Okay.
Yeah. And the fifth one is a bit of a personal observation, really, is that when you're working with such ancient processes, like the way bodies physiologically hook up, and the way brains and the way the whole minded body links up with another minded body, when you're working with that, you are tapping into a really primitive survival process. And so if you have a shift in that area, it can be very profound because you're sort of dealing with basic safety issues,
right,
survival issues,
yeah,
and it can be a big change for very little input, if you know what I mean.
yes,
What I've noticed is that this is often misattributed to a spiritual shift or a spiritual communication. And I'm saying it isn't always. Sometimes it can be quite biological. It can be quite sort of, it can be the other end of the spectrum, if you like.
yeah.
So, for example, on social media, there's always pictures of like animals doing amazing things and understanding what the human is doing. So there's one I like of a male elephant charging towards a man, and the man is just doing deep breathing and really calming and and modeling calm and no threat. And the big charging elephant screeches to a halt and stops, because there is no threat.
Right.
And the interpretation by the people who've shot the video is that this is a deep spiritual connection. And I'm thinking, well, it's biological. It's that it's that neuroception. Is there a threat? No, there's no threat.
Right. Yes.
And removing threat in our clients is really important.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
It totally is. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, because there is so much of it around. That's why.
Yeah, totally. We are bombarded with it. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, here we are. The exercise time. Great.
So, okay. The exercise I thought we would do is I would talk you through how to prepare. And I know it's, teaching your grandmother to suck eggs.
Oh, she's frozen up just when we go back to do the exercise. Let's just hope she reconnects. Oh, I'm just going to just see if I can get her to reconnect now. I'm just going to remove her from the stage and get her to rejoin, and hopefully that will fix it. There we are. Okay, while she's reconnecting, I'm going to just say a few things that I found amazing about this book. It's just so affirming in the way that it really does explain a lot of the things that happen when we're doing shiatsus, particularly in diagnosis. And I've seen some of the questions. Oh, you're back, Cindy. I'm just filling in.
I was talking for ages.
You just as soon as you did the exercise, the internet decided to cut you off. I think it was somatic empathy. I think with your router.
Yeah.
I'll put it over to you, and hopefully you'll unfreeze, and I can talk a little bit about some of the things. We've had some questions as well that I think will be really interesting. So must leave some time at the end for some questions.
Yeah.
I'll leave the stage. And
so have we got time for this then, or should we go?
Yeah, I think so. As long as like 5 minutes will be fine.
5 minutes? Okay.
5 or 10 minutes, I don't know.
So the first thing we're going to do is to get ourselves as clear as possible. So that means you're going to sit or stand wherever you are with your spine gently rising towards the ceiling. So you're not crumpled. None of your joints are squished and squashed. Top of your head gently floating up. Either close your eyes or have your eyes on peripheral vision, a soft focus. Let your shoulders fall away from your ears. Take a few deep breaths and see how your breathing is. So just have a little assessment of yourself. Nothing too deep, just see if you've got any aches and pains or any strong emotions or any strong thought patterns going on that are yours, so you can tell the difference between yours and mine. Focusing on yourself. Okay, and then you can open your eyes and look at me and just have some curiosity and ask yourself quite a specific question. How do I feel? Or have I got any aches and pains? Or What are my emotions like at the moment? Just have some curiosity about me. You've been watching my face for 20 minutes, watching my body language. As you ask that question, assess your own interoception, assess your own body. You just get little glimpses, little insights, and you can ask more and more detailed questions and feel the response in your own body. It won't feel definite. It will feel like just a hunch. Okay, and it doesn't take very long. So just start when you get anything, any kind of hunch, just be brave enough to type it into the chat box.
That was so interesting, Cindy, because it's essentially the same thing that we do when we do scanning and things like that, but it was done in a very sort of kind of quite a low key way and quite a simple way as well. Like, I like the idea of just going with the dominant, just the main things that were happening in your body, because obviously you can go into more and more detail if you go down. So what have we got? Hug, tight jaw, elbow, toothache.
Oh.
I see you inhabiting your mansion. There we are. Lower back, right jaw. Quite a lot of jaw.
Yeah,
Upper
there's a lot of jaw, isn't there?
Yeah. Tired. Need a nap.
Yeah.
Lower back, diaphragm area.
Oh, who said left hip?
Someone, like, it's just gone flying
Debbie.
past, actually. Yeah.
Wow.
Tightness in the back of the heart. Right in the hips again.
Yeah, loads of heart stuff. Okay. Yeah. Well, people, how bloody amazing is that? Really tight jaw.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine died yesterday suddenly.
Oh no, I'm so sorry, Cindy.
I'm very grateful for the hug. And I also cut my arm and my elbow hurts and my left hip was injured. So yes, brilliant. And I'm tired and I always need a nap. So yeah, you're all right. Lower back, hips. Yeah, brilliant. So, for me, that's enough those sorts of things would then be enough for me to start working in those areas and then asking slightly more questions and feeling what's going on and asking more questions. And so through the Shiatsu treatment, I'm not doing somatic empathy the whole time. I'm just dropping in and out of using that as a source of information.
Sure.
And definitely adding it to all the, rational analytical stuff that we're taught as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a few questions about that which we can deal with with the Q&A.
Isn't that brilliant? Because this is just from my facial expressions. Honestly,
movement. Some of it was movement, I think.
Movement. Yeah. But I mean, if you'd seen me walk into the Shiatsu room and lay down, you'd have so much more information as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And also the voice, I think, as well. The voice. Yeah. So
Hugs and naps, that's nice.
Yeah.
I love that.
Hugs and naps, yeah.
Yeah.
So now the next poll is just to find out, do you ever pick up information from your clients? I'm just going to run that you feel after the session, because that's an issue, isn't it, Cindy, that sometimes happens.
What hangs on afterwards.
Yes, we don't want that.
No, but I do think it's fairly inevitable.
Yeah. I always joke that if it gets really bad, you're going to have to charge your clients double, one for the session you give them and one for the one you have to pay for to get rid of the pain that you've got from them. That's my standard joke about that.
I have found, though, that since writing the book, my clients say, I'm ever so sorry to bring this to you. No, it's okay. It's my job.
Look, here we go. Look at this. We've only got one person, 22%. One person said, no, it never happens. We've got sometimes 59%, 26 often. That's pretty high, 25%.
But
and
you
then
know, it's in this particular profession. I'm not surprised.
No, but that's 65% say sometimes and often. So, you know, that's
yeah.
Great.
So this brings us to, I've got to keep an eye on the time, brings us to, you know, if we do automatically share our clients' conditions without consciously being aware of this, in which case, you know, we might say, no, it never happens. Then there are many questions that arise, like, is it safe to work with disturbed clients? How do I get rid of issues that stick with me after working with clients? Can I pick up physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual problems from my clients? And how do I know what's mine and what's someone else's? So these are the most common questions that I get asked. And, you know, each one of those is a really long discussion, is a whole webinar, really.
Yes. Well, we'll book you next year already. We could just have a webinar just on those, and that'll give everyone a year to read this.
Yes, I mean, I've written the book because you can't answer all these questions in 20 minutes. But is it safe to work with disturbed clients? This is kind of the crux of the matter, really, is how are we going to use somatic empathy optimally without getting vicarious harm?
Right.
And there is the potential for vicarious harm.
Vicarious means harm that you didn't intend to pick up.
Vicarious means
I just think of the non-English speakers here.
Vicarious harm means harmed in the place of someone else. Yeah.
I see. Yes. So you have the harm instead of them. That's what
so
you mean.
If your children are having a great time, you can enjoy their life vicariously.
I see. Okay. Yeah.
So vicarious harm is the phrase they use because of in trauma work, because it's well known that therapists get vicarious trauma. And of course, you know, this is all part of what we're doing now. So the answer is yes and no, is that it's not 100% safe, as in you can be harmed vicariously by working with disturbed clients. And my point is that only if you don't understand what's going on and you're not aware that you are in danger of vicarious harm. So once you're aware of this is totally normal and you do it all the time, whether you like it or not, then you can get on with working with disturbed clients, but have some kind of way of managing your own self-regulation.
Yes.
And this is where it brings me to how important it is to have the right model, the right conceptual model of how it's working.
Yeah.
Because if you assume that when you work on, I mean, I'll give you an example. I've worked on a client during them having a psychotic episode. I would not recommend it, and I will never do it again.
Wow. Yeah.
Because I had 24 hours trying to get that sorted afterwards.
Yeah.
And that was a little, you know, big lesson for me. A bit arrogant, think, oh yeah, I can do that. It's like, no, don't do that. So the conceptual model, if your conceptual model is that a person is going to give you bad energy and that you're going to walk away covered in this black gooey energy, I don't find that very helpful model, because it creates fear in yourself, in that if you're scared of catching bad energy from your clients, you know, we talked about neuroception in the beginning. If you're scared, if you're fearful, then your neuroception is magnified and you will take on more information about them in order to find out how dangerous they are.
Right.
So it amplifies all the bad stuff in you. So you really need to find a conceptual model that lowers your fear of catching things from people.
Yes.
So for me, the way I've done that is I've said, well, I don't mind feeling unpleasant for a while, because I will shift it. Yeah. So I don't mind getting my hands dirty. That's what I mean. You know,
Yes.
I don't care how, I don't mind how awful it is for my client. I will go in there with them and I won't be scared. And then I'll come out and I'll deal with it.
Okay. Yeah.
And that helps me not be fearful of clients that are really quite scared themselves of what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Great.
How do you get rid of issues? Okay, so again, it helps if you've got a conceptual model of how it's working.
Right.
So if your conceptual model is that you've caught some kind of energy, then you might do something like waft sage around. I don't know. But if your conceptual model is that you have simulated your perception of what is going on for them in your body, then if you move your body mindfully in any way, that could be Qigong, yoga, any kind of mindful movement, dance, anything, walking, you are changing your relationship with your somatic sensations.
Right.
And that changes the simulation that you're embodying.
Right.
Change your attention and it changes the simulation that you're making.
Right. That's very helpful. Yeah. Yeah.
So I always I rely a lot on nature because nature is human neutral. So it's not got human information. So after I've been working on humans all day, I go wandering about in nature and I'm very attentive. I want to understand, I want to embody what's going on in nature. And that kind of neutralizes what's going on. Anyway, there are lots of ideas in the book. We better leave time. There's only 10 minutes left.
All right. Yes.
I've given you a little handout here, which summarizes how somatic empathy happens.
Yeah.
I'm not going to read through it now because it's something you can read through yourself.
It was in the email. I put it out on the second email, so they'll all have that. Yeah.
So we better leave the 10 minutes for questions, haven't we?
Yeah. Okay. Let's have a look and see what we've got. Let's have a look. Oh yeah, here's another one. Yes or no from Zora. Hi Zora. Will you have a Kindle version of your book available?
I will. I'm having the formatter is doing it now.
Oh, there we go.
And then I'll put it out on Kindle and a few other EPUB places.
I thought something like this would be. This is from Talitha. Isn't it also true that you need to develop the basic skills of Shiatsu technique and diagnosis to be able to develop subconscious skills to read someone and even to get into our consciousness? The somatic empathy will have been there already, but to be able to use it, you need time, technique, experience, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, this is the whole purpose of having a technique, isn't it? Is that you can do something with your intuition. I mean, because otherwise you're just going around knowing stuff about people and not being able to do anything about it.
No, or the technique can be very minimal, like just being there for them, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And there's the whole range in between. But having Shiatsu tools, we can actually do quite a lot, can't we?
We really can.
We really can. So
and I can really understand why we can as well now. I mean, it's maybe really rethink the whole, what a diagnosis is. Now I can see really it's a way of structuring somatic empathy in a sense. It's a way of filtering out and focusing your attention on certain aspects of the information.
And the take-home point, I want to get across to, alternative practitioners and complementary practitioners is, don't let yourself be poo-pooed for using intuition and experience because it's the primal way.
If you just remember one thing from the last hour, exactly, that's it. I think that's it.
All cognition is based on, felt senses in the body, and that's what we're good at.
Yeah. And we need to look after ourselves, especially if you're like Kim, who has most of her clients have got cancer, and she discovers that her heart seems to break when she's working with them. So,
Wow.
that's
Yeah.
something to, really, you really do need to have some kind of strategy and some kind of conception model that helps you literally deal with that.
Yeah, I mean, the positive thing I haven't mentioned about, because I know not everybody wants or needs a scientific model for, for their experience, but it's helped me feel less of a victim. So, because I now feel that I'm a simulator. I'm simulating my clients. I'm not a victim of what they give to me. See what I mean?
I think that's a really useful thought. Yeah, a really useful way of thinking about it. Absolutely. Yeah, that's it. Look, here's someone who's karate instructor.
Yeah.
This is Grace Kanazawa, could do brain coupling 30 years ago. He showed them that. So
wow.
It's that's it.
Yeah, the martial arts side is really interesting, which is why Damo Mitchell's interested in what I've been working on, because of the whole transmission thing. How is information being passed from teacher to students, and with those fancy skills they do where they move each other without touching each other.
Hi, Therese. Look, Therese says if I don't breathe properly and consciously, I feel that the wrong things come into her. That's her experience.
Right.
Yeah.
If you don't breathe properly.
Yeah. You feel that breathing is important.
But what are the wrong things?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. And do they really come into you at all?
Yes.
That's the thing to ask.
I mean, I think it is quite important to allow yourself to get dirty. Do you know what I mean? To
resonate. We call it resonate, don't we?
To not be scared of getting into someone's life that's really, not that comfortable.
No.
And you might be uncomfortable for a few hours, but so what? I mean, you're helping them, and you can sort it.
Yeah. Elizabeth says it helps me to feel everything can go to the earth if she grounds. That's what she does. It's very similar to your walking in nature thing, isn't it?
Yeah. I find it quite limited though, and nature doesn't always solve everything either.
No.
There are. But it does answer those other kind of funny questions that we've always had, like why do you get clients that have things you've had, and why do you get and why do things you've had stick with you longer, and all that. And of course it all makes sense now, because your simulations are based on your experience, your past somatic experience.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So I can't feel things in people unless I've had some experience of them.
No, that's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. Look, I think this is Zora. Hi, Zora. I had a client, I suspected he had a psychiatric diagnosis, but he never mentioned it. Then one day he came with a full-blown psychotic episode. I somehow managed it, but after that, his wife phoned and confirmed that he was bipolar. Curiously, the treatments were easier after that because there was no secret. We could talk freely. He didn't say anything before because of fear of being judged. He felt safe as I was not judging him, so we could work much easier after that.
Yeah, no, I've had similar experience with serious mental health. Is like when a client knows that you have experienced a taste of what it's like to be them and how uncomfortable that is.
Yes.
I've shared really uncomfortable mental states with people, and I don't know how they tolerate it, full time. It's really, really uncomfortable. And no one ever shares that with them because, there's sort of avoidance thing and guilt and shame and all that. So I think it's wonderful if you can, but I wouldn't recommend trying to consciously connect with someone during a psychotic episode, because it's quite challenging.
Yes. Therese mentions that it being aligned is very important to her.
Yeah.
Okay, here's Helen. Notice that somatic empathy is a transitory process while the key is working. Usually it does not last long and ends with the session. That's what you ideally want.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, setting up really clear beginning and end to the treatment is really important. You know, having these little routines that denote to your own unconscious that that is the end.
Yes.
This is the end.
Yeah, it's like having it, like wrapping it all up,
Yes.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yes. And you're quite right that most somatic empathy is incredibly transitory. There is research showing that we dip in and out of people, even sitting next to them on the bus, even without looking at them. Our heart rates start to synchronize, the skin conductance starts to synchronize.
Yes.
And after we've assessed them, that's it. We're not interested. The body goes back to normal. And you're just assessing people all the time with your body. But there's also the thing of when you live with people or you're in a relationship is you start to form a long-term co-regulation of your physiological processes.
Right, there we are. I thought it was an interesting thing I read in the book that was interesting is that you don't actually have to like the person. You just have to be interested in them.
No, I mean, you know, we're getting close to sort of explaining why people stay in abusive relationships, you know, because it's just the attention that you put on someone when you're scared of them locks you into this brain coupled physiological co-regulation thing.
Right, there you go. Yeah. There we are. By applying somatic empathy in our practice, this is Donna. Hi, Donna. Do you think it can invoke the possibility of mind sight, neurobiology response in clients, i.e. we can actually reshape our neuropathways? Daniel Siegel stuff.
Well, reshaping your neuropathways, it's going to take more than one session.
Yes.
But yes, is the short answer, I think, in that but it would have to be a co-regulatory relationship. You know, they've got to be interested in paying attention to you, and then you can guide them and so on. Yeah, it's all new stuff. I mean, the linking up of the different pockets of research is what needs to happen now.
Yeah, you're doing a great job, by the way. Someone's got to do it.
Here's
our very own Basti here. Hi, Basti. Thanks for tuning in. Are you mainly saying that a clear perspective and a practice of clarity in our own bodily feeling is the key, or is one of the keys, I guess? What do you think?
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you have issues or you've got pains or you're not feeling good, as long as you know what is yours when you start.
Right.
You've always said this, you know, it doesn't matter if, you know, as long as you know what is yours and that you're listening to your interoception. And then, of course, when you show curiosity about someone else, the interoception changes.
Right. Yeah.
And we all vary in how much we are aware of interoception, but you can train it, as we've said before.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, there's one question left from Zora, but I can pass that on to you later, Zora. I'll pass that on, and we just have a look at just see if we've missed any.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah, just popping through the slides. This is all in the thing. Yeah. I've got to share the link to your book page, although it'll be everywhere, and I've put it in the replay email as well. So there's no excuse. You just click there and you can get a copy of this amazing book.
And it's not terribly sciencey, is it?
No, that's right. Zora's one. Zora, I put you in touch with her because she's doing some research and stuff like that about it. It's very readable, yeah, which I think is a great thing. We've done the Q&A. Yeah, we've done it.
It's funny because it's the one thing everyone's surprised about.
Or they think it's going to be very sciencey.
Oh, it's surprisingly readable.
Surprisingly readable, yeah. That's right, yeah. Although there's a lot of references I noticed in the back if you want to go.
You can just ignore them, but if you want them, they're there, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, yeah, no. Well, I think the thing is, it's just my overriding experience of the book is like, oh my goodness, that's what it's like to be alive and connecting with people. That's, you know, it's just, and it's something that's happening all the time. And it's like you say, it's just because we're so dominated by the visual cognitive dominant culture that it's almost like rediscovering something very, very fundamental to being a human being. And I think that's one of the biggest values in it. If it can lead us in that direction, then it's going to be so valuable. And, you know, and I guess we know that in our hearts as Shiatsu practitioners, we know what we're doing is a healing thing, not just for the person, but for the whole culture and everything. And I think that your book, what it does is it just basically provides the language and the science behind it, so that it broadens it out. It makes it accessible to a much wider readership.
Yeah, we can't be accused of being flaky. This is solid stuff. Come on.
Yeah, it's the opposite of flaky. It's the fundamental structure of reality.
Yeah.
Cindy, it's been an absolute pleasure as always. We're right on the 1 hour.
Because I'm teaching Open University at 7. So
she's teaching Open University right now. She's got to go. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. And we'll get you back in a year and find out what's happened in the world.
Yeah. How do I get out?
I'll finish it up now. It's okay.